It's the Noon Report from Family Life, bringing a Christian worldview to what's happening in New York, Pennsylvania, across the country, and around the world. Weather with Kevin Williams, and faith-focused feature stories with the Family Life News team. Now, here's what's happening.
Good afternoon and welcome to the broadcast. I'm Family Life News anchor Sarah Harnish. High-stakes talks are set for Saturday between America and Iran. Will the ceasefire stand? Iran, angered about Israeli strikes in Lebanon yesterday, has again shut down the Strait of Hormuz. Vice President J.D. Vance will lead the negotiation team in Pakistan.
If Iran wants to let this negotiation fall apart in a conflict where they were getting hammered over Lebanon, which has nothing to do with them and which the United States never once said was part of the ceasefire, we think that would be dumb, but that's their choice.
Former Army Special Forces member Jim Hansen was asked how he thinks the talks will go. He told Fox News it's cut and dry.
President Trump is not going to compromise in any way on the most important things. No nukes, no missiles, and no funding terror in the region. They're going to agree to those or there will be no deal.
The ceasefire lowered prices for a barrel of oil by $20 in a single day. But Professor Severin Bornstein says you won't see a change in the price at the pump until at least May if the deal holds.
Typically, when the price of crude oil falls, gasoline follows, but with a pretty long lag, often 3 or 4 weeks.
It's prompting some to rethink summer travel plans. Matt Kashinka was gassing up in Richmond, Virginia.
We don't like it. Again, what choice do we have? If we're taking a road trip to some family, you got to have gas in the car.
The national gas price average has exceeded $4 a gallon for the first time in 4 years. It's averaging $4.14 for a gallon of gas in New York and $4.19 a gallon in Pennsylvania. President Trump met with the head of NATO on Wednesday. He's not happy they haven't fully participated in the war with Iran. This is how the NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte explained it to CNN.
He is clearly disappointed with many NATO allies, and I can see his point. But at the same time, I was also able to point him to the fact that the large majority of European nations has been helpful.
Lara Trump says the president, though, needs more than helpful.
When President Trump said, we need your assistance to our allies in NATO to open up the Strait of Hormuz, they were nowhere to be found. Countries like Italy and Spain weren't just burying their heads in the sand, but seeming to actively restricting use of certain military bases.
She says disarming Iran blesses the world.
It's not just to America's benefit, but the benefit of the entire world to ensure that Iran does not nuclearize itself. I would argue that it may be even more important for the Europeans.
2/3 of NATO funding comes from the United States. There's been a verdict in the case of a doctor in Hawaii accused of trying to murder his wife.
We, the jury in this case, finds the defendant guilty of attempted manslaughter.
Gerhard Koenig has been convicted of a lesser charge of attempted manslaughter instead of attempted murder for hitting his wife with a rock and trying to push her off a cliff. She survived and testified. CBS legal analyst Lori Levinson.
If you try to kill somebody, but it's coming more out of your emotion than your cool mental process, that's going to be lowered down to attempted manslaughter.
Koenig insists he acted in self-defense. The alleged Gilgo Beach serial killer pled guilty in court on Wednesday. Rex Heuermann admitted to killing 9 women on Long Island. The victims' families had this to say.
I'm thankful that we came to a conclusion that brought peace to everybody.
Sentencing is set for June 17th. The U.S. Coast Guard has officially opened a criminal investigation in the Bahamas after a woman vanished from a boat that she was on with her husband. CBS's Allison Keyes.
Police in the Bahamas say the husband of Lynette Hooker has been arrested after his wife vanished Saturday. Brian Hooker told police that she fell overboard from an 8-foot motorboat with the keys and that he paddled to shore. Lynette Hooker's mother and daughter have been skeptical about the details given by her husband of over 20 years.
Texas textbook war. The Texas School Board is taking up a list of reading materials for elementary and middle schools that would include stories from the Bible like Jonah and Joseph. Testimony was heated Tuesday with protesters on both sides of the aisle.
I don't trust any of you with my child's religious education.
Nathan Irving is a pastor who testified in favor of Bible stories in classrooms statewide. He says the Bible is part of America's history.
Our children deserve the truth. They deserve to have a an accurate understanding of the founding of our country.
Irving argued before the board that it's impossible to separate education and faith in school.
I'd just like to touch on the myth of neutrality. There is no neutrality really in anything, especially in education. Some would say we need to get all religion out of schools. The problem with that is then you are effectively teaching an atheistic religion. Your education is atheistic. You're teaching children how to think about mathematics without God, of science without God, of history without God. So that's impossible. There's always going to be some worldview imposed upon children.
If the board approves it, the list would be used in the 2030 school year. Marriage is good for your health. Researchers at the Sylvester Comprehensive Cancer Center analyzed 4 million cancer patients across 12 states and found, especially for men, people who were married had an overall lower risk of developing cancer.
Patients who have a family, they have support system, they tend to do better because they can navigate the health system better. They're more economically stable.
Oncologist Namrata Vijay Verghia spoke with Fox News.
It's not that marriage solves every problem in the world. It is more about it being a marker of something bigger, better social support, better healthy behaviors.
And the Artemis II crew returns home tomorrow night after slingshotting around the moon this week. Victor Glover is pilot of the space capsule.
We have to get back. There's so much data that you've seen already, but all the good stuff is coming back with us. There's so many more pictures, so many more stories. And gosh, I haven't even begun to process what we've been through.
NASA wakes the astronauts up each morning with hand-picked music that they publicly released last night. On that list is a Christian song you might know.
It's a good morning. Wake up to a brand new day.
Mandisa making the cut on the Spotify astronaut playlist. Still to come on the Noon Report, 7 levels of a parking garage fall to the ground. President Josh Shapiro and the King and Queen of the Netherlands on their way to PA. Those stories after weather.
Good afternoon. I'm Kevin Williams. Our warming trend continues, at least for today. I got the latest forecast. That's coming up in 10 minutes.
Thank you, Kevin. Checking the stories making news where you live in New York and Pennsylvania. We start in Philadelphia. 1 person is dead and 2 are missing after 7 levels of a parking garage collapsed during construction. These guys saw it.
It was a big boom, and then, I thought it was thunder and lightning.
They wake up one morning expecting I'm just going to work, and something happens now, like they're not coming home and now their family.
Mayor Sherelle Parker.
We will not stop until we do everything that we can to locate those 2 people who are currently unaccounted for.
3 people were rescued. Parker says a chunk of the roof fell in first, triggering a progressive collapse of connected sections. She says permits were issued properly and inspections were up to date. Eyebrows were raised yesterday as Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro again took to the national stage, this time at the National Action Network Convention, Al Sharpton's event. That's a platform in New York City that invites 2028 presidential hopefuls to court the African-American vote. Shapiro asked again if he's running for president of the United States. He skirted the question.
As to who's a candidate at the end of the day, that's for another day.
Fox political pundit Joe Concha says 18 months into Donald Trump's term, it means it's nearly time to begin the next race.
It serves as a reminder that presidential campaigns, they used to be like, a year and a half. Now, right after the midterms, it's basically going to start.
Concha says Shapiro is on a short and unimpressive Democratic list of candidates.
Kamala Harris, she spent nearly $2 billion and couldn't win one swing state. Buttigieg also may run. He's part of the Biden brand. Josh Shapiro, who I think would be a pretty good candidate, is going to have some real problems with the growing anti-Semitic wing of the party. J.B. Pritzker has his record in Illinois to defend, as does Gavin Newsom. And listening to Andy Beshear, he's the governor of Kentucky, it's like, listening to paint dry.
He says the left needs an electric candidate, and Josh Shapiro, while he's near the top of the list, doesn't fit the bill.
If these are the candidates, it's not very good news for Democrats because there's no one that really stands out as somebody who could take the mantle and grab the country's attention the way Barack Obama did back in 2008.
The midterms are creeping up up on us November 3rd. The King and Queen of the Netherlands are visiting Pennsylvania next week. The Dutch royal house has announced King Willem-Alexander and Queen Maxima kick off a multi-state visit to the United States in Philadelphia, where they'll meet with Josh Shapiro and get a tour of Independence Hall and the Liberty Bell. They'll also have a sit-down with Philadelphia Eagles players. Pennsylvania is hosting European football, the World Cup, this summer. A boil water advisory is still in place for most of the town of Elma, New York, after a water main break earlier this week impacted more than 11,000 people.
We don't know how long the boil water alert will be up. Obviously, you're safe to shower and things like that. It'll just be to drink or cook with.
Town Supervisor Wayne Clark told WGRZ the break happened Tuesday inside the town's pumping station, flooding the building.
At the time, until all that water got out, we couldn't even see what needed to be repaired.
New York's labor commissioner visited the Southern Tier on Wednesday to tout Governor Kathy Hochul's child care reforms in the unpassed state budget. Roberta Reardon speaking in Watkins Glen.
Really making sure that people have not just affordable but accessible, because, we're in a rural area. It's really hard. If the daycare is too far away, you're not going to be able to take advantage of it anyway.
Under the proposed budget, the state would invest $4.5 billion in child care and pre-K programs across the state. Tops grocery stores will now accept SNAP and EBT food stamp benefits through DoorDash in New York and Pennsylvania. Family Life's Mark Webster has that story.
Yeah, store executives say it's part of their mission to improve access to fresh food. EBT and SNAP-eligible foods include fresh produce, dairy, meat, and pantry staples. DoorDash drivers typically pick up pre-packed, sealed bags from stores, meaning Tops employees would be packing the food and preparing it for delivery. Fees and tips are not included, but many low-income families don't have reliable access to transportation, and advocates point out a $6 delivery fee is a lot less than a car payment and insurance. Mark Webster, Family Life News.
Elmira, New York police have begun a new program to help adults with autism during traffic stops. It's called the Blue Envelope Program. Autistic drivers leave their license, registration, and insurance in a blue envelope in the car, and when they're pulled over, they hand it to police. It alerts officers that they may need more communication or could be spooked by lights and sirens during a traffic stop. You can pick those envelopes up at the police department. And say it isn't so. Hershey's Chocolate says GLP-1 weight loss drugs are hitting their industry hard and causing Americans to buy fewer snacks. Sales of drugs like Ozempic and Wegovy have doubled the past 2 years, corresponding with a declining obesity rate. Speaking to investors on Wednesday, Hershey told them they see opportunity, though. They'll be expanding their pretzel line, leaning into protein, and pushing products like their mint icebreakers, which soothes Ozempic side effects like nausea and bad breath. That's the news. Sports is on deck next with our own Randy Snavely.
Buffalo is back on top. Good afternoon, I'm Randy Snavely. Sarah, the Sabres regained the top spot in the Atlantic Division after defeating the Rangers at Madison Square Garden last night 5-3. Zach Benson netted a pair of goals. Jason Zucker scored the tiebreaker early in the third as Buffalo came from behind with 3 goals in that final frame to claim the victory. There were only 2 other games played on the ice last night. The Caps shut out Toronto 4-0. The Oilers, no problem with the Sharks, 5-2. To Major League Baseball, the Athletics scored the go-ahead run in the 9th inning and edged the Yankees 3-2. The Mets fell to Arizona 7-2. The Pirates dropped an 8-2 decision to the Padres, but Pittsburgh did sign rookie Connor Griffin to a 9-year, $140 million contract extension. Pretty heady stuff for a 19-year-old. The Phillies were shut out for the second straight game, this time 5-0 to the Giants. Elsewhere, your winners, the Red Sox, Blue Jays, Rockies, Braves, Cubs, Marlins, Cardinals, Twins, Rangers, Orioles, and Guardians. In the NBA, Devin Booker was the leading scorer. He dropped 37 points on the Mavericks to lead Phoenix to a 112-107 victory. Cleveland, Orlando, Detroit, Denver, San Antonio, and Oklahoma City, your other winners. For Oklahoma City, they have clinched the top spot through the playoffs. And finally this, golf's biggest tournament of the season is underway at Augusta National in Augusta, Georgia, as the 89th edition of the Masters Golf Tournament is being played. This marks the first time since 1994 that neither Tiger Woods nor Phil Mickelson will be in the tournament. Rory McIlroy is your defending champ. That is a look at sports.
Still to come on the Noon Report, a deep dive into human trafficking and the dog with rhythm. Those stories next at noon.
Welcome to Breakpoint, a daily look at an ever-changing culture through the lens of unchanging truth. For the Colson Center, I'm John Stone Street. Is the resurrection of Jesus just a matter of blind belief, or can we really know what happened that first Easter Sunday? According to Biola professor and theologian Thaddeus Williams, the answer is yes, we can. And it involves 4 facts from 7 non-Christian scholars and 6 Hollywood movies. Here's Thaddeus Williams.
First, the facts. Fact 1, Jesus died by crucifixion. Outspoken critic of Christianity Bart Ehrman argues, quote, since no one would have made up the idea of a crucified Messiah, Jesus must have really been crucified. Fact 2, the disciples had experiences from which they concluded that Jesus rose bodily from the dead. Again, Bart Ehrman, quote, we can say with complete certainty that some of Jesus' disciples at some later time insisted that he soon appeared to them, convincing them that he had been raised from the dead. Fact 3. Paul, an anti-Christian, became a willing-to-die Christian because he thought he encountered a risen Jesus. Fact 4. The tomb of Jesus was empty. Atheist James Tabor places it beyond doubt that Jesus', quote, temporary place of burial was discovered empty shortly thereafter his death. Now, which hypothesis best explains these facts? Here are 6 that have been proposed using the plots of some movies you probably know. Number 1, the Loki hypothesis or Muslim theory. Loki appears to die on no less than 3 occasions in the Marvel Universe, but never truly dies. Hypothesis 2, the Harry hypothesis or mystery religions theory. Over 100 years ago, German scholars uncovered mystery religions that seem to feature mythological dying and rising gods. In the same way, we might find parallels between Harry Potter and the Christ story. These German scholars concluded that the New Testament Jesus was a copycat, plagiarized from the stories of Mithra, Osiris, and other mythical characters. Number 3, the Ocean's 11 hypothesis or stolen body theory. Perhaps after Jesus was executed, the remaining disciples hatched a plan to retrieve the body, the most successful heist in history. Number 4, the Sixth Sense hypothesis or hallucination theory. In the 1999 thriller The Sixth Sense, we hear one of the most chilling lines ever, I see dead people, an apropos line for the hallucination theory. Number 5, the Princess Bride hypothesis or swoon theory. In 1828, a German atheist named Heinrich Paulus argued that Jesus was mostly dead after the crucifixion and therefore slightly alive. Number 6, the Three Amigos hypothesis or wrong tomb theory. The Amigos make their way to Santo Poco thinking it is a movie set. It is not. It is an exploited Mexican village. But what if the disciples' proclamation that Jesus rose from the dead was a similar case of mistaken destination? Now, let's test our hypotheses against the facts. The Harry hypothesis cannot account for any of the 4 facts as historical facts. The Princess Bride and Loki hypotheses fail to account for fact 1. The Ocean's 11 and Three Amigos hypotheses falter at facts 2 and 3. And of course, the most obvious obstacle for the Sixth Sense hypothesis is the empty tomb. This brings us to the resurrection hypothesis. Jesus' body was not heisted, imagined, impersonated, or misplaced. It was resurrected. He is risen. He is risen indeed.
Thanks, Thaddeus. You can hear Dr. Williams give a fuller treatment of the resurrection in his video, What Really Happened That First Easter Sunday. Or you can pre-order his book, Reflecting the Sun. For the Colson Center, I'm John Stone Street with Breakpoint.
Good afternoon. Here is your Family Life regional weather forecast. For tonight, mainly cloudy, a shower in spots, low temps, 40s. Tomorrow, it'll turn out mostly cloudy. To start the day, just a stray shower. To end the day, rain. Temperatures will warm in the morning, into the 60s for some, but then drop in the afternoon, and much cooler tomorrow night.
Thank you, Kevin. This is the Noon Report on Family Life. I'm Sarah Harnish, and thank you again for joining us. On deck next is a special edition of Faith Under Fire. This week, a rare sit-down with a lawmaker on the effects of human trafficking. New York is 5th in the nation for human trafficking cases, and Pennsylvania seeing a significant spike. We'll go deep into the Keystone State and what it's doing to protect your kids. Let's listen in. This is Faith Under Fire. We take you straight to the front lines of religious battlegrounds. I'm your host, Sarah Harnish. With me today, Pennsylvania State Representative Clint Owlett and the president of Lantern Rescue, Corinne Moon. We're talking human trafficking. There is a lot on this topic in Pennsylvania right now, and what a treat to have the head of a nationwide anti-human trafficking organization, Lantern Rescue, and a state representative to hash it out. There is a new human trafficking caucus and 2 bills to start in the works. Clint, tell me about House Bill 1835 and House Bill 910.
Yeah, 2 very important pieces of legislation. We're trying to increase penalties for CSAM images that depict relatives, and that's what House Bill 1835 really is designed to address. And the other thing that we're seeing is the trafficking of infants, and the current penalties for that are really not enough in our minds, and we're trying to turn that into a felony, and that's what House Bill 910 does.
Tell me about these images. What's happening in Pennsylvania?
What used to be called child pornography is now called CSAM, which stands for Child Sexual Abuse Material. In these images, what we've been seeing a lot of lately is images that are depicting, whether it's real or pretend, an incestual relationship. And right now, there's not an enhancement for that crime. CSAM itself is a terrible crime, and it affects children for the rest of their lives. But you add on to that the one safe place you're supposed to have, your parents, your family, they're the ones doing the abuse. So it's another added layer of abuse. There's 3 different things that you can be charged under. A lot of people are charged under several of these things, but there's possession, distribution, and creation. With possession, we're seeing it a lot on people's phones, which means that they possess the images, they've gotten them from somebody. Creation, it's hard to say for sure how many images like that are being created here in Pennsylvania. And distribution is when they're sharing the images. So we see a lot of the possession, a lot of the distribution, and it's oftentimes hard to determine if they're created here in Pennsylvania, but demand drives the supply. So whether they're created here or elsewhere, people here are soliciting them, they're possessing them, they're distributing them. They are driving this demand.
We can't just pretend that it's not happening. These are heavy conversations. We don't like talking about them. We're seeing more and more convictions, especially of the possession of child pornography and CSAM on people's phones all across Pennsylvania. Even in my district, we read about it in the paper, see arrests being made for possessing this type of material on people's phones. And we have to try to protect these kids. If no one else is going to, we have to at least start having the conversation and looking for ways to address this issue, because it really hurts them. And like Corinne said, there should be safe places in your home with your family members. And if that is trending in the opposite direction, then somebody's got to start talking about this, and there definitely should be some increased penalties for taking that safe space away from a child.
Tell me a little bit more about House Bill 910.
We're trying to make sure that there's an increase in penalty for trafficking an infant. And an infant in this means a child 1 year of age or younger. We want to turn that into a felony. If someone's moving an infant around in Pennsylvania and trafficking that infant, we believe these would fall in line with being a felony. And that's what we're trying to increase that penalty to.
Where are these bills at?
Yeah, so they've been referred to committees, and we have not seen any movement on them. One of the things that we are excited about in Pennsylvania is we have just recently started an anti-human trafficking caucus, and this is bipartisan and it's bicameral. So it has members of the House and the Senate and Republicans and Democrats coming together to try to identify some very specific pieces of legislation that we can work on together. This issue is not a Republican issue. This is not a Democrat issue. This is not a suburban urban or rural issue. This is a Pennsylvania issue. So we want to lead by example, show that we can work on issues together in both chambers and across the aisle to address it. And I have the opportunity to be on the steering team for that anti-human trafficking caucus. So these are a couple of the bills that we're bringing to the table to see if we can get across the finish line.
Let's shift gears a little bit, and we're going to talk digital human trafficking. What are you working on with that?
So digital human trafficking is something that I learned about. Actually, Corinne brought this to my attention, and it's really prevalent in rural communities. And we often think of human trafficking as the white van on the corner, and that is not the case in rural Pennsylvania. But what we're seeing more is digital human trafficking where people are targeting our kids through their phones, through different apps and different relationships, and trying to engage them with conversations in hopes to get them to share content with them that they can then use to blackmail the student, the child, to produce even more content for them to then sell.
I'm sure everyone has seen a Facebook post that's like, my friend's sister's cousin's twice-removed uncle was almost trafficked in a Target parking lot. I understand people's fear when they go out into public, especially with trafficking being such a prevalent topic in the news right now. But that is not the most common way for someone to be trafficked. The most common way for people to be trafficked is through people that they know or have developed a relationship with. And we're seeing that happen a lot online. So it's not to say don't be cautious when you're out in public, but when people are so busy looking around their environment and looking for an external threat, they're overlooking the internal threats, which is just on the phone. You think your kid's safe when they're in their room and you're in the living room watching a movie, and in reality, they're in their room talking to people that are trying to exploit them. There's another word called sexploitation that's becoming popular, and that is exactly what Representative Owlett had just said about how they will meet someone online, that person will start to groom them, get them to send explicit images and videos, and then use those to force them to create more. We also see grooming to where they actually end up meeting in person. So these people are wanting to develop this slow, long-term relationship with them so that it's not sending up red flags immediately. And it's happening within people's homes. It's happening on the devices. I've had tons of parents come and speak to me about, at seminars that I'm at, they come and speak to me and they have their kid standing next to them. The kid is playing on the phone, completely engrossed in the phone, and the parents are talking to me about how to tell their kids to stay away from strangers. And I'm like, well, there's a really good chance they're talking to them on the phone right now. Like, do you know what's on that phone? Do you know what they're doing? So it's not to say don't be cautious of external threats, but it is more likely that it would be someone that the child knows, whether it's in person or virtually, that would try to traffic them.
It seems like it would be a difficult thing to rein in. Almost like playing whack-a-mole. You knock one conversation down, but how on earth do you begin to stop what predators are doing online?
Yeah, I think we've done some seminars on this in our district and had some really amazing stories that have come from it where parents are all of a sudden realizing the threat that's out there. Their eyes are opened up, and the need for engagement in your kids' lives is so important now. It's always been important, but the threats and the temptations and opportunities and the people that are preying on our kids through their phones is astronomical. So you have to be engaged in your kids' lives more now than ever, and be engaged in what they're looking at, who they're talking to, all that stuff. I had an intern that stopped by my office. She was actually interning with another House member down in Harrisburg, and I asked her randomly, I'm like, hey, so I'm just curious. I'm working on this presentation on digital human trafficking. I said, out of, the high school kids that she was from down Lancaster Way, out of your friends in high school, how many of your friends are actively talking with people that they don't know online? And she's like, oh, at least 90%. And I'm like, are you kidding me? And she said, yeah. She's like, absolutely. It's not abnormal at all to talk to people that they have no idea who they're talking to on a regular basis online. And those types of things, it can lead to some really dark places for these kids. And we want to make sure that parents are aware of that. And so is it a piece of legislation? I don't know. We're still trying to figure out what the best way to handle this is. But what I often tell people is never underestimate the power of a sausage patty and a pancake. Engaging with your kids at such a high level and your grandkids, having those hard conversations, those awkward conversations. We're parents. We do awkward conversations every day. It's fine. But have those conversations with your kid. Take them out to breakfast, engage with them on a regular basis, do it often. Don't just say, well, I talked to them one time about digital human trafficking and check the box, it's over. The threat is never over. And so put up safeguards, try to look for ways to engage with them. That's the real practical way. That's not a piece of legislation that's going to get stalled in the Judiciary Committee in Pennsylvania. These are things that we can address at home and with our families. It just takes a little bit of grit and know-how and added involvement to do that. And that's what we're employing people to do, because these are issues that we can handle at the home front, and we have to.
Last question, Corinne. You're the president of Lantern Rescue. Do you have any statistics on why this matters so much in Pennsylvania? How often is this happening? Because I think as parents, we think, oh, it won't happen to our kids. They're not going to get exposed to that. How serious of an issue is this?
It's an extremely serious issue. I can't emphasize enough that it is in every single town. No matter how small your town is, if your town has 500 people, it can still be happening. It is happening everywhere. They're predators. They're called that for a reason. So they are online searching for your children. They're searching for a way in for, it looks like, any type of vulnerability. So if they're sharing online how they lost a soccer game or how their parents don't understand them or whatever that is, traffickers are going to take advantage of that, and they're going to fixate on it and use it to exploit these children, use it to get close to them. And it's happening in person, it's happening online. Online can turn into in person very quickly. So you can't underestimate that. It's not happening in my town. My kid would never. Don't say those things, because it can happen to anyone, anywhere. Like Representative Allett was saying, 90% of high schoolers, from the intern's perspective, are speaking to people they don't know online. That is so alarming. And it is so easy for an innocent conversation to turn into something that is exploitative very quickly. So we can't underestimate this. No child is above this happening to them.
Learn more at lanternrescue.org. That's Pennsylvania State Representative Clint Owlett and the president of Lantern Rescue, Corinne Moon. Faith Under Fire airs Thursdays during the noon report or online anytime at familylife.org. Just ahead, the story of the impatient dog. But first, one last look at weather.
Good afternoon. Here is your Family Life regional weather forecast. Warmer than recent days. High temperatures, most spots in the 60s. Toward the end of the day, there'll be a shower in spots close to Lake Erie and up through Niagara. Then for tonight, mainly cloudy, a shower in spots, low temps, 40s. Tomorrow, it'll turn out mostly cloudy. To start the day, just a stray shower. To end the day, rain. Temperatures will warm in the morning, into the 60s for some, but then drop in the afternoon. And much cooler tomorrow night. Saturday, a mix of clouds, the sunshine becoming mostly sunny and crisp with high temperatures in the upper 40s and 50s.
All right, Kevin, finally at noon, this isn't the sound of a car alarm. Rather, it's an irritated dog. An impatient pooch in Killarney, Ireland, was picked up on cell phone cameras beside his partner in crime, another pup, in the front seat, repeatedly and with great skill and cadence, honking the car horn with its paws, waiting for the owner to return. They picked up quite the Irish audience of onlookers.
That's cool, yeah.
That was unedited cell phone video. The best part of it, though, might be the comments shared on Fox News. One person wrote, "It was the largest squeak toy he's ever seen." Another person, "1 beep, come here. 3 beeps, bring treats." And a third comment, "The other dog is like, you're so in trouble." The hasty hound in Killarney. And that's the world that we live in for Thursday, the 9th of April. I'm Sarah Harnish, and this is Family Life News.
You've been listening to the Noon Report, heard weekdays on Family Life. Thank you for listening.